I was 17 and feeling every bit the moody teenager that night. My mom and I had gotten into one of those epic, door-slamming arguments where I swore she just didn't understand me at all. I felt suffocated in that house, with her rules and lectures, so I decided to leave. Originally, I planned to take a walk to cool off, but as soon as I opened the door, the chill hit me hard. It was freezing, and honestly, the dark neighborhood felt a little too eerie. So, I did the inevitable walk of shame past my mom, who was still in the living room, and snatched up my car keys. I mumbled something about going on a Maccass run and stomped out, giving the door one last satisfying slam. My car wasn't exactly something to be proud of, a beat-up, bright red Suzuki Swift that groaned like an old man every time I turned the key. I cranked the heater, and as expected, the engine wheezed in protest. I turned up my angry playlist, drowning out the sound, and pulled out onto the quiet street. The McDonald's run was supposed to be my excuse for leaving, but by the time I got there, I wasn't even hungry. My hands were still shaking from the argument, and my chest felt tight. I needed more than a burger to calm down. I needed space, somewhere to think and just breathe. That's when I decided to take a drive down Galston Gorge. Galston Gorge is one of those places that feels ominous even in daylight. A narrow, winding road cutting through dense bushland, full of sharp hairpin turns that could easily send you flying into a ravine if you weren't careful. My mom had taken me down that road plenty of times when I was learning to drive. She figured if I could master Galston Gorge at night, I could drive anywhere. I hadn't really thought about its dark reputation until I was already halfway there. See, Galston Gorge isn't just known for its treacherous turns. There's a history there, one that makes locals uneasy. Years ago, it was connected to a notorious serial killer, Ivan Milat, the man who inspired the movie Wolf Creek. One of his victims' belongings, a camera, was found on that road. People talk about strange things happening there at night. Unexplained lights, shadows in the trees, but I always figured it was just campfire stories. The road was pitch black, with only my headlights piercing through the darkness. I gripped the steering wheel tighter as the road twisted and dipped, the trees almost leaning in as if to swallow my little car. The only sound besides my music was the occasional rustle of leaves hitting the windows. I didn't see another car the whole time, and the isolation was starting to get to me. Then, as I rounded one of the tightest hairpin corners, my headlights swept across something in the middle of the road. I almost didn't register it at first, a dark, bulky shape. I hit the brakes, the car protesting with a loud screech, and squinted at the obstruction. At first, I thought it was a dead animal, maybe a kangaroo that had been hit and left behind. But as I inched closer, I realized it wasn't an animal at all. It was a baby car seat. I froze, my brain trying to catch up. The seat was positioned right in the center of the road, partially covered with a blue baby blanket decorated with little gray elephants. I hesitated, my fingers tapping nervously on the steering wheel. What was it doing out here? I leaned forward, peering through the windshield, trying to spot any sign of someone who might have dropped it. But the road was empty. No cars, no lights, nothing but the dense, looming trees. Just as I was about to pull around it and keep going, I heard it. A baby crying. The sound was muffled, almost like it was coming from inside the car seat itself. I turned the music off, my heart pounding as I rolled down the window, just a crack. The crying grew louder, heart-wrenching, desperate. I felt a knot forming in my stomach. My first instinct was to jump out and check, but then a memory surfaced, my mom's stern warning. Never stop for anything weird on the road at night. Call for help, but don't get out. I sat there, torn between guilt and fear. What if there really was a baby in trouble? Before I could make a decision, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye, something shifting just beyond the reach of my headlights. I squinted, my skin crawling as I tried to make out the shape. It was like a dark figure crouching low in the bushes, barely noticeable. A chill ran through me, and I gripped the door handle. I was seconds away from stepping out when the thought hit me. Why would someone leave a baby seat in the middle of the road? And why was the crying so robotic, almost looped? The next second, I saw him. A tall, wiry figure emerging from the shadows, moving cautiously toward the car. Panic surged through me, and I slammed the door shut, locking it. I floored the gas, swerving around the baby's seat, and sped up the road, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I didn't stop until I reached the top of the gorge, finally pulling into a gas station where I could catch my breath. I immediately called the police, my words stumbling over each other as I explained what I'd seen. The operator told me to stay put and that someone would be on their way. The next morning, I got a call from the local station. The officer informed me that they'd investigated the area. The baby seat was gone, but they found fresh footprints in a blue baby blanket, just like I described, caught in a bush off the side of the road. The officer then explained that a group of men had been using this tactic to lure women out of their cars, placing the baby seat in the middle of deserted roads and using a speaker to play the sound of a crying infant. When someone stopped to help, they'd ambush and assault them, often leaving the victims in the bushes to die. The officer commended me for staying in my car, saying I was lucky to have trusted my instincts. The men hadn't been caught yet, but my report gave them a new lead to follow. Since that night, I've been haunted by the thought of what might have happened if I'd gotten out. I've never driven down Galston Gorge again, and I never will. I should have turned back an hour ago. The road is gone now, buried under a thick layer of snow. My wipers gave up about 10 minutes back, frozen stiff and just smearing white instead of clearing it. My headlights feel useless, pressing against the flurry like fists in cotton, barely making a dent in the darkness. I squint, leaning forward, trying to make sense of the road ahead. My hands are shaking slightly, but I can't tell if it's from the cold or the creeping sense of dread building in my chest. I don't even know what lane I'm in anymore. Somewhere between Abergavenny and Brecon, on one of those B-roads that snakes between endless stretches of empty farmland and dense, looming forest. It had been snowing since late afternoon, at first, just soft flakes that disappeared the second they touched the windscreen. Now it's thick, driven by gusts of wind that seem determined to push my little car off the road. It's snow that sticks, that sinks, that swallows. I pull over because I can't see anymore. The steering wheel vibrates under my hands, and I can feel the ice building up on the tires. If I go even a few feet farther, I might not make it back. I kill the engine, and the world doesn't go quiet. It goes muffled, like someone's thrown a heavy blanket over the entire car. The silence is unnerving, more so than I expected. Inside the car, it's a different kind of quiet, artificial and thick. The kind that makes you hyper-aware of every sound you make. The crinkle of my jeans when I shift, the soft tick of the dashboard settling, my own breath fogging up the cold glass. I check my phone. 7% battery. No signal. Figures. I'm not scared yet. Just annoyed. I pull the thin, scratchy blanket from the back seat and wrap it around my legs. I crack open the thermos and take a sip of coffee. It's lukewarm at best. Tastes like burnt pennies. I let it sit in my mouth a moment, trying to pull some warmth from it. Somewhere out in the trees to my left, I hear a snap. A branch breaking. I freeze, the thermos halfway to my lips. Just wind. Has to be. I tell myself that a few times. But then I hear something else, a low, dragging noise. Soft but deliberate, like something moving slowly through the snow. I sit up straighter, peering through the fogged windshield. Nothing. Just the whiteout, swallowing the world outside. I try to distract myself, focusing on practical things, how I'm going to explain being late to the meeting tomorrow, whether I'll get in trouble for taking the B road instead of the main route. But every few minutes, I catch myself listening for that sound again. About 10 minutes later, maybe more, time's hard to track. I hear it again. A crunch. Then a pause. Another crunch. Too slow for a deer. Too heavy for a fox. It's pacing. Circling. I wipe the condensation from the driver's side window with my glove. There, just outside the range of the headlights, a shape. Tall. Not moving. Just a silhouette behind the snow. I blink, trying to focus, but when I look again, it's gone. Right. I mutter. Right. Okay. I start the car. The engine stutters, groans, and dies. I try again, but this time it's just a click. The battery's frozen or flooded. My pulse is hammering now. In the mirror, nothing. I shift uncomfortably in my seat, trying to stay warm. The heater doesn't work anymore. The silence around me feels like it's closing in, like it's pressing against the windows. After what feels like half an hour, I hear it again. Crunch. Pause. Crunch. Closer now. My hands ache from gripping the steering wheel too hard. My toes are going numb. Then, a knock on the rear window. Just one. Soft. My breath catches, and I turn around so fast that my neck cramps. Nothing. But the blanket suddenly feels suffocating. I push it down, trying to keep my breathing quiet. Something's out there. I know it now, and it's not going away. I think about getting out. trying to dig myself free. But where would I go? Even if I knew which direction the road went, I wouldn't make it far in this snow. And if something's out there, something circling me, leaving the car would be like stepping into its territory. I stay put, breathing through my nose, trying to keep the windows from fogging up too much. Then there's another knock, this time on the driver's side window. 3 taps, rhythmic, like a question. I flinch so hard that I spill the last of my coffee. Slowly, I turn my head. There's something pressed against the glass. Not a hand, something longer, jointed the wrong way. An arm, maybe, bent like an elbow that forgot how to be an elbow. It drags down the glass, leaving a faint, squealing sound. I don't breathe. I don't move. It vanishes, and I almost relax, when I hear laughter. Not loud. Not right. Like someone trying to remember how laughter is supposed to sound. Wet, slow. The door handle clicks. Once. Twice. Testing. I lunge over and lock it manually, my fingers burning from the metal. Then I see it. Just the feet. Hoofed. But bent too far back, like something stitched together wrong. It's facing the car. Watching. I close my eyes. Count. Listen. When I open them again, it's gone. The air inside the car is colder than before. I pull the blanket around me tighter, curl into myself. Then I hear it. My mother's voice. Sweetheart. I stiffen. She's been dead for 3 years. The voice comes closer. Sweetheart. Open the door. It's cold. I can't move. I can't breathe. Tap, tap, tap on the passenger window. I dare a glance. A figure stands there, tall and covered in matted, wet fur. Its head tilts like a crow listening to something in the soil. When it leans in, I see its mouth a wide, cracked smile. Behind the cracked skin, teeth. Rows upon rows, layered like a shark. It whispers in a voice that isn't my mother's. Let me in, sweetheart. When daylight finally creeps in, I force myself to get out of the car. I look around. No tracks. Just a single hoof print behind the car, pressed so deep it looks like it burned into the snow. When the police find me later at a petrol station, they say they found the car, roof dented inward like something heavy lay on it all night. Scratch marks on every door. A trail of footprints that just stopped in the middle of the snow. They look at me funny when I mention the voice. And now, every night, I swear I hear it outside my flat. That familiar, wrong laugh. Calling my name. And I wonder what would happen if I opened the door. Camping has always been a bit of a gamble. You never really know what kind of night you're going to have. Sometimes it's peaceful and quiet, with nothing but the crackle of a campfire and the whisper of leaves. Other times, you meet people, sometimes good, sometimes strange. It's all part of the experience. But I'll never forget the night I met, whatever that was. Maybe you can tell me. Every year, I make the same trip to visit my parents, a grueling 16-hour drive each way. To be safe, I never try to do it in one go. I usually stop halfway at a freeway service area, sleep in my truck, and hit the road again in the morning. It saves me money on a hotel, and after years of doing it, it's become a bit of a tradition. This year started just like every other. I packed my truck with snacks, pillows, and a playlist of my favorite podcasts. I was in for a long haul, but feeling good about it. The drive was uneventful at first, the highway stretching endlessly, with little to see but passing headlights and dark, empty fields. Around 7 p.m., I pulled into a small gas station. It wasn't much, just a couple of pumps, a dingy little store, and a few scattered street lamps. I parked in a secluded spot away from the lights, figuring I'd sleep better without the glare. After grabbing some instant noodles from the store, I settled into the back seat with my blanket, propped up my phone, and zoned out to some YouTube videos. The faint glow from the nearby streetlight seeped in through the gaps in my window coverings, and the engine ticked softly as it cooled. I must have fallen asleep at some point because the next thing I knew, I was waking up, my heart pounding, but with no idea why. I sat up and listened. The world outside was eerily quiet. No wind, no passing cars, nothing. Just the hum of the distant freeway. I chalked it up to paranoia and tried to settle back down. That's when I heard it. Knock, knock. 2 sharp taps on the rear window right next to my head. I jerked upright, my heart racing. For a second, I thought I must have imagined it. Then it happened again, 2 deliberate knocks. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. What the hell? I'd parked in the far corner of the lot, where no one would bother me. Who would be knocking on my window this late at night? Hello. I croaked, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a long pause before I heard a voice. A woman's voice. Do you have a light? Her tone was flat, almost robotic. I blinked, trying to process what she had just said. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Again, she said, do you have a light? Something about the way she spoke made the hair on my arms stand up. It wasn't just the question itself, it was the way she said it, like she was reciting a line she didn't understand. Through the small gap in the window covering, I could make out her silhouette, just standing there, completely still, illuminated by the glow of the street lamp behind her. No, I finally managed to say. No, I don't. Sorry. Silence. Do you have a light? She asked again, her voice just as empty as before. Was this some kind of joke? I felt a surge of irritation. Look, I told you, I don't have a light. Go ask someone else. I'm trying to sleep. She didn't move, didn't react, just stood there like a mannequin. Then she spoke again, in the exact same tone. Can you lend me your phone? Something cold settled into my stomach. What for? I asked, trying to sound casual. For phone, she replied, her voice dragging on the word like it was stuck in her throat. She kept repeating it, slower each time. Phone, phone. Panic gripped me. My phone was dead, drained from playing videos while I slept. I didn't even have the option of calling for help. Without warning, she started slamming her forehead against the window, over and over, hard enough that I could feel the vibrations. Her muffled voice kept chanting, phone, phone. I scrambled into the front seat, my hands shaking as I grabbed the flashlight from the glove compartment. I spun around and shone it at the window. Nothing. The space where she had been standing was empty. I swept the light across the parking lot, checking the ground and the shadows. No one. I didn't move for a long time, my heart thudding so hard it hurt. After a while, I managed to breathe again, telling myself I must have dreamed it. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still out there, hiding just beyond the reach of the light. I tried to calm down, convincing myself it was just a messed up prank. As the night stretched on, I started to drift off again. That's when I heard a new voice. Sir, this is Officer Wake. Is everything all right in there? A police officer? I rubbed my eyes and glanced out the window. I couldn't see anyone. Yeah, I'm fine, I replied. Some woman was knocking on my window earlier, but she's gone now. There was a long pause before the officer spoke again. Sir, please step out of the vehicle. Something about his tone was off. Too stern. Too forceful. Where's your car? I asked. Silence. Who called you? Nothing. Just the sound of something dragging on the pavement. Then the voice returned, quieter but with the same eerie flatness. Step out of the vehicle. My stomach dropped. I slowly reached for the flashlight again, turned it toward the window, and there she was, standing just inches from the glass, her face too close, staring at me with blank, glassy eyes. Her mouth moved, but the voice that came out wasn't hers, it was the officer's voice. Step out of the vehicle. I couldn't take it anymore. I slammed the car into reverse, tires screeching as I peeled out of the lot. As I sped down the highway, I glanced back, half expecting to see her chasing me, but the lot was empty. 2 hours later, I stopped at another gas station. Exhausted, I fell asleep in the driver's seat. When I woke at dawn, I got out to stretch and saw them, bloody handprints on every window and dozens of bare footprints in the dirt around my truck. I have no idea what I encountered that night. I've taken that trip countless times, but now I always find a motel. I don't care how much it costs. I'll never sleep in my truck again. Welcome to Kickin' Chicken. Can I interest you in the number 5 on this fine evening? Repeat that phrase to yourself once. Now repeat it again, on average, 80 times in 8 hours. That's what my nights looked like, an endless loop of robotic politeness mixed with the greasy smell of fried chicken. Working the night shift at a fast food joint out in the sticks wasn't exactly my dream job, but it paid the bills. Most nights, I just tried to get through the grind without thinking too hard about my life decisions. My shift started at 11 p.m. and ended at 7 in the morning. Those hours alone were enough to mess with my mind and body. I'd roll home in the pale morning light, feeling like a zombie while the world was just waking up. After a few months, the stress of working graveyard hours while juggling college classes and keeping up with bills had drained me completely. I'd lie awake on my nights off, too anxious to sleep, thinking about the same damn routine awaiting me when the next shift rolled around. But despite the low pay and the rough hours, I couldn't bring myself to quit. The reason was simple. Her name was Arabella, and I was absolutely hooked. The first time I saw her, I was clocking in on my first shift. She was restocking the sauce packets behind the counter, her leather jacket tossed casually over her kickin' chicken uniform. I accidentally bumped into her while trying to maneuver around the cramped space. Our shoulders brushed, and I caught a whiff of her perfume, a mix of cinnamon and strawberry, sweet and intoxicating with just a hint of cigarette smoke. She flashed me a crooked smile that made my heart flip, and that was it. I was done for. After that, I became obsessed. I started checking the schedule just to see when we'd be on the same shift. I'd planned dumb little jokes or ways to impress her, but for weeks, luck wasn't on my side. Most nights, we were on completely different shifts, and I'd only catch glimpses of her as she left while I was coming in. Then one night in the dead of winter, the universe finally cut me a break. The snowstorm started just before my shift. I trudged through knee-high drifts to get inside, shaking the ice off my jacket. To my surprise, Arabella was already there, alone behind the counter. She looked up, her dark hair falling in waves over her shoulders. "You're early," she said, her voice soft and teasing. "Yeah," I managed to mumble, still a little stunned. "What are you doing here?" "I thought tonight was just me and Jerry." She rolled her eyes. "Jerry called in. I got stuck with the double shift. Boss said I couldn't leave until someone else showed up." "Lucky you." I tried to play it cool, but my heart was pounding. "Guess it's just you and me then." Arabella didn't respond, just gave me a faint smile and went back to cleaning the fryer. I shrugged off my coat and settled in behind the register, repeating my usual greeting in my head, ready for the few brave souls who might venture out in the blizzard. The night was dead. Snow was piling up against the windows, and the roads were nearly invisible. Our manager had hired a plow to clear the drive-through lane, but by 2 in the morning, we hadn't had a single customer in over an hour. I used the downtime to talk to Arabella, asking her about school, her favorite music, anything to keep the conversation going. She was polite but distant, barely looking at me. Every few minutes, she'd step outside with her phone, leaving me alone to wonder if I'd said something wrong. I figured she was just smoking, but it was weird how often she kept going out. Then, around 3:30, something strange happened. A car pulled up to the drive-thru, and I gave my usual line, "Welcome to Kickin' Chicken. Can I interest you in the number 5 on this fine evening?" The voice on the other side made me pause. "Yeah, let me get the number 5 with a cup of water. And some ice, please, if you don't mind." Something about the way he said it tickled my brain. I'd heard that exact phrasing earlier. Same order, same weirdly polite tone. I brushed it off as coincidence. "Sure thing, sir. Total will be $8.33 at the next window." When I turned around, Arabella was standing just a few feet behind me, her eyes wide and alert. "Same guy," she whispered. "Yeah, weird, right?" She didn't answer, just turned her back to me and started rummaging through the fryers. I could hear the sizzling as she dropped a new batch of chicken into the oil. When the SUV rolled up to the window, I glanced at the driver. He looked completely average, brown hair, glasses, Mets hat, light skin. I handed him his order, and he flashed me a friendly smile. "Thanks, kid. You guys staying safe out here?" "Yeah, just trying to keep the place running," I replied, still a bit unsettled. He looked past me at Arabella, who was wiping down the counter. "You the one making this delicious chicken?" he asked, his tone weirdly flirtatious. Arabella gave a shy nod. Yeah," the guy grinned. "Don't go anywhere, cutie. Might be back for more." He drove off, and I watched him park just at the edge of the lot, his headlights illuminating the snow. I didn't think much of it, but Arabella looked on edge. "Do you know that guy?" I asked. "No," she replied quickly, pulling her jacket tighter around her shoulders. "Just a weird vibe, that's all." Minutes later, he came back. Same order, same tone. Arabella practically shoved me out of the way to take over the fryer. I watched her, confused. "You okay?" She didn't respond, just kept glancing at the window. When the guy pulled up, I handed him his food, and he winked at Arabella. "Told you I'd be back." The moment he left, Arabella locked the doors and turned off the drive-through light. She leaned against the counter, breathing hard, her hands trembling. "What's going on?" I asked, genuinely worried. She whispered, "He's been here before. Not just tonight. Before." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "Are you sure?" She nodded, eyes darting toward the windows. "Last week. Same guy. Came in 3 times. Only when I was working. Kept asking about the chicken. About me." Before I could say anything else, the sound of shattering glass made us both jump. Arabella whispered, "He's back." Before I could react, she turned to me, a wild, manic look in her eyes. In one swift motion, she plunged a 4-inch knife into my gut. My vision blurred as I stumbled back, blood soaking my shirt. Arabella leaned closer, whispering. Dolores was a little dry. "Let's get it right this time." That was when I saw the SUV's driver burst through the shattered window, gun drawn. The next thing I knew, shots rang out, and Arabella collapsed, still smiling. The officer dragged me outside, and through the blur of pain, I learned the horrifying truth. Arabella had been serving human meat. Our manager's remains were in the fryer. During the summer break of my junior year in high school, I took a job at a McDonald's on the outskirts of town. I was 17, naive, and desperate for money to save up for college. My parents hadn't exactly planned for my education, and I knew if I didn't hustle, I wouldn't be going anywhere after graduation. I wasn't a night person at all. I preferred to keep my days packed with productive activities, hanging out with friends, working out, studying, or practicing coding for competitions to boost my portfolio. Nights, though? Nights were slow, unproductive, and mostly just homework or mindless scrolling on my phone. I didn't sleep much, maybe 3 to 4 hours at most, but I figured I could make use of those late hours instead of wasting them. That's how I ended up applying for night shift jobs. A fast food gig seemed perfect since it wouldn't require much mental effort, and I could get paid while knocking out my homework. Plus, I've always had a soft spot for fast food, so when McDonald's called me back, it was a no-brainer. The place wasn't much to look at. Located a bit on the outskirts, it mostly served weary travelers and the occasional trucker. I didn't mind, it was quiet, and fewer customers meant more downtime. Plus, being out in the middle of nowhere had a weird sort of charm. It was peaceful, mostly. My dad's old car groaned as I pulled up that first night. The building looked a little run-down, cracks in the pavement, some mold creeping up the outside walls, but it wasn't anything I hadn't seen before. Inside, it was even quieter. A middle-aged man stood behind the counter, waiting for me. He greeted me with a tired smile. "You must be the new kid." "I'm Marty," he said, shaking my hand. Marty took me through the basics, how to work the fryers, the drink machines, and the drive-thru booth where I'd be stationed most of the night. As we wrapped up, he leaned against the counter and gave me a hard look. "Hey, kid, do you believe in ghosts and stuff?" I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, no. Why?" Marty rubbed his temples, like he was trying to figure out how to word something without sounding crazy. "Look, this is gonna sound weird, but you'll have to follow some rules while working here at night. They're important. Could cost you your life if you ignore them." I gave a nervous laugh, but Marty's face was dead serious. He pulled out his phone and showed me photos, grainy, poorly lit images of teenagers who used to work the night shift here. According to him, they all vanished without a trace after failing to follow the rules. "Cops think I'm nuts," he said, his voice shaky. "They've searched the area, questioned me a dozen times, but no one believes me. Please, just follow the rules. You'll be fine if you do." I nodded slowly, still thinking it was some kind of initiation prank. But Marty's eyes were red-rimmed, desperate. He handed me a crumpled piece of paper before patting me on the shoulder and leaving for the night. I smoothed out the note and read the list. It was titled, "Rules to Survive a Night at McDonald's." The rules. 1. Keep the lights on at the drive-thru counter at all times, with an exception to Rule 5. There's something lurking nearby, waiting for the lights to go out. If you let your guard down, it will come for you. 2. Check the security cameras before responding to any drive-thru order. If a black Range Rover Evoque with tinted windows pulls up, do not respond, no matter how much they yell. Just ignore them. If you speak to the driver, he will break into the booth and attack you like a wild animal. 3. If someone orders fries after midnight, tell them you're all out. The smell attracts something dangerous. Do not, under any circumstances, open a new bag of frozen fries. 4. If you hear your name being called from behind you, stop everything you're doing and lay flat on the floor. Close your eyes. You may feel teeth on your limbs or something brushing against your body. Stay still until you hear demonic giggling. Only then can you get back up. 5. If a little girl with no eyes appears in the drive-thru camera feed, turn off all the lights and lock the doors. Do not look outside, no matter what noises you hear. Wait until the screaming and scratching stop, then turn the lights back on. 6. If you hear laughter or voices from the dining area, ignore it. The building is locked at night, and no one should be inside. It's just the creature trying to lure you out. 7. If the lights go out on their own, you must sacrifice a toe or finger. Place it on the drive-through counter and hide. You'll hear growling and a quick snatch. If the lights come back on and the limb is gone, you'll live. If it's still there, it's already inside. A. Do not fall asleep. The creature will know, and you won't wake up again. I put the note in my pocket, convinced it was some kind of sick joke. Still, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. I set up in the drive-through booth, glancing at the security monitors every few minutes. For the first hour, nothing happened. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. Then, on the monitor, I saw her. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, standing in the driveway, staring straight at the camera. Her eyes were just black, empty pits. I froze, heart pounding, before I remembered Rule 5. I killed the lights and ducked behind the counter. Almost immediately, the windows rattled like something heavy had slammed into them. A scream, high-pitched and inhuman, pierced the night, followed by scratching and pounding on the walls. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying for it to stop. Then silence. After a few minutes, I dared to peek. The lights flickered back on, and the cameras were clear. My heart was still racing, but I forced myself to calm down. A few minutes later, I heard muffled laughter from the dining area. I bit my lip, remembering Rule 6, and kept my eyes glued to the counter. The laughter grew louder, like a crowd had gathered just behind the locked doors. An hour passed, and a car pulled up, a black Range Rover. My blood turned ice. The man inside started yelling, demanding I take his order. He screamed obscenities, threatening to break the windows. I stayed silent, hands trembling. Eventually, he sped off into the darkness. By the time my shift ended, I was exhausted, mentally and physically. Marty showed up, saw my pale face, and gave me a knowing nod. "You made it," he said quietly. That night, I went home, trying to convince myself it had all been a bad dream. But the next morning, I found a smudge of bloody fingerprints on my car door, the same place where something had knocked during the night. I quit the next day. $200 a night wasn't worth my sanity or my life. Sometimes a night drive is all you need to clear your head. Or at least that's what I thought that night. I was pissed off, like, really pissed off. My girlfriend, Mia, and I had been fighting again. This time it was about something stupid, like always. She thought I didn't care enough about our relationship, and I argued that she was too clingy. Voices got louder, things were said, and I finally stormed out before I said something I'd regret. I jumped into my car, hands shaking as I jammed the keys into the ignition. My old Civic roared to life, and I pulled out of the driveway like a bat out of hell. It was past midnight, but I didn't care. I just needed to get away, clear my head, and let the adrenaline fade. The town was mostly asleep. A few bars still had their lights on, but the streets were almost deserted. I drove aimlessly, taking random turns, trying to focus on anything other than our fight. Eventually, I found myself on Route 19, a long, narrow stretch of highway that cuts through the woods just outside of town. The night air was cool through the cracked window, and I let it wash over me. The road was quiet, save for the occasional truck barreling past. I turned up the music, some old rock songs I barely listened to anymore, and let the miles slip away. About 20 minutes in, I noticed a pair of headlights in my rearview mirror. They were distant at first, just a faint glow behind me, but they got closer fast. I figured it was just someone in a hurry, probably a trucker trying to make up time. The car pulled up closer, so close I could see the reflection of my brake lights bouncing off their hood. A beat-up old sedan, its paint chipped and faded. It hung right on my bumper, and I had to fight the urge to brake check them. I switched lanes, letting them pass. Instead, they followed, keeping the same distance. I sped up a bit, just to test them, but they matched my speed. "Seriously," I muttered, gripping the wheel tighter. I thought about pulling over, just letting them go by, but the road was too narrow. Instead, I pushed the gas a little harder, taking the curves faster than I should. The car stuck to me like glue. My heart started thumping faster. I turned down the music to focus. The road was dead straight for a stretch, and I gunned it, hoping to put some distance between us. For a second, it worked. The headlights faded a bit. Then they surged forward, closing the gap again. "All right, buddy, what's your problem?" I muttered under my breath. I thought maybe they were just messing with me, maybe a couple of guys having a laugh at my expense. But as we passed a gas station, I thought about pulling in. Just as I flicked my blinker, they swerved behind me, nearly clipping my bumper. "Screw it. I wasn't going to stop now. I sped past the gas station, trying to ignore the rising panic. The headlights stayed glued to my rear bumper. About a mile down, I saw an upcoming intersection with a dirt road veering off to the right. I flicked my blinker again, pretending to turn, then at the last second swerved left, hoping to fake them out. The car didn't fall for it. They mirrored my move, tires squealing. Okay, this was getting ridiculous. I checked my phone, but of course, no service. I thought about calling Mia, but what could she do? After a few more minutes of the chase, the car suddenly backed off, dropping several car lengths. I watched in the mirror, confused. I almost felt relieved until I saw the sedan accelerate again, speeding toward me. My heart stopped. I swerved into the opposite lane just as they closed the gap, narrowly missing my rear bumper. The car flew past me, veering wildly before regaining control and slowing down. I thought they were finally leaving me alone, but they slowed down to match my speed, staying just ahead now. I could barely make out the silhouette of the driver, a dark figure with one hand draped casually over the steering wheel. What the hell was their problem? The sedan suddenly slammed on its brakes, and I had to swerve onto the shoulder to avoid rear-ending them. My tires hit the gravel, and I struggled to keep control, my heart pounding like a jackhammer. I pulled back onto the road, and the car just sat there, idling. As I drove past, I glanced over. The driver was staring straight ahead, completely still. I couldn't make out their face, just a shadow under a baseball cap. A chill went down my spine. I didn't wait around to see what happened next. I floored it, watching the sedan in my rearview mirror, half expecting it to chase me again. But it didn't move. Just sat there, headlights still on, like a statue in the middle of the highway. After about 5 minutes of driving without seeing the car behind me, I started to calm down. I took the first turn off Route 19 and found myself on a smaller, winding road through a residential area. I parked on the side of the road, just to breathe. My hands were still shaking. I texted Mia, something short and vague, just letting her know I was okay. As I was about to start the car again, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mia. "You okay? Some guy just came to the door looking for you. He had a baseball cap on and said he was your friend. He seemed off." I didn't tell him anything. My blood ran cold. I looked around, every shadow suddenly feeling hostile. How could that guy have found out where I lived? I was miles away from home, and I hadn't told anyone where I was going. Then I heard it, a slow, steady tapping on my rear passenger window. I didn't dare look. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Mia. "He's still outside. What the hell is going on?" I forced myself to look in the mirror, but the back seat was empty. Trembling, I slowly turned around. The window was fogged up, but there was something smeared on it. I leaned closer, and my stomach dropped. It was a handprint, streaked in something dark. I didn't stick around to figure out what it was. I peeled out of there, my mind racing. I drove straight back to Mia's, not even caring if I'd lead him there. When I arrived, she was waiting on the porch, looking pale and shaken. "He just left," she whispered. "We called the police, but they didn't find anything. Just a dark stain on my car window, like dried blood." I haven't seen that car since. I haven't driven Route 19 at night either. Sometimes, though, I still see handprints on my windows, even when I know I've cleaned them. And every so often, late at night, I swear I see headlights lingering just at the edge of my street, waiting. It was supposed to be just another late-night commute home. I'd finished up a grueling shift at the warehouse, my muscles aching from loading pallets all night. I had my usual routine: stop at the all-night diner for a coffee to keep me awake, then take the long way home through the outskirts of town. It wasn't the fastest route, but it was quieter, and I liked the solitude. That night, I didn't even think twice about crossing the old bridge. The Mill Creek Bridge is a rickety, one-lane wooden structure that has been there longer than anyone can remember. They've talked about tearing it down for years, but it's still standing, just barely. Locals say it's haunted, that people sometimes hear voices coming from underneath. Some say it's the ghosts of kids who drowned when the river swelled decades ago. Others say it's just the wind whistling through the warped wood. Me? I never believed in any of that crap. It was around 2 in the morning when I approached the bridge. The air was heavy, the kind that sits on your skin and makes it hard to breathe. The headlights of my old sedan sliced through the darkness, illuminating the peeling wooden planks. I drove slowly, cautious as always, because the bridge creaked like it might collapse under the weight of a strong breeze. Halfway across, my car sputtered, then stalled. I cursed under my breath, trying the ignition a few times, but it just wouldn't start. The headlights flickered and died, leaving me in the pitch dark. I sat there for a moment, just listening to the sounds around me. Water rushing below, the groan of the bridge, my own breathing. "Damn it," I muttered. I popped the hood and got out, my feet crunching on the rough wood. The cool air bit at my skin, and I shivered, feeling more annoyed than scared. I propped open the hood and squinted at the engine, trying to make sense of the problem. I didn't know much about cars, but I knew enough to jiggle a few wires and check the battery connections. That's when I heard it. A faint, echoing voice. It was coming from underneath the bridge. I froze, ears straining. It sounded like someone calling for help, muffled, desperate. I moved closer to the edge, leaning over the wooden railing to peer into the darkness below. The water rushed noisily, reflecting moonlight in silver ripples. Again, I heard it, louder this time. "Help, please." It was a man's voice, strained and broken. My stomach twisted. I called out, "Hey, are you okay down there?" Silence. I pulled out my phone, but of course, there was no signal. Typical. I leaned over the railing again, squinting to make out any movement. Maybe someone had fallen in. Maybe they were trapped in the current. Then I heard it again. "Please, help me." Something about the tone made my skin prickle. It wasn't just desperate, it sounded familiar. I couldn't place it, but it tugged at some deep, uneasy part of my brain. "Hey," I shouted, my voice louder than I intended. "Where are you?" Silence again. I stepped back, feeling uneasy. I thought about climbing down to the riverbank to look, but something held me back. A strange, creeping sensation that told me I didn't want to see what was down there. Then it came again, louder than before, and clearer. "Help me. I'm stuck." It sounded exactly like me. I froze, my heart pounding in my ears. The voice, it wasn't just similar. It was identical. My own voice, crying out from below the bridge. I backed up, my hands shaking. I knew I had to get out of there. I slammed the hood shut and jumped back into the car, my hands fumbling with the keys. I tried the ignition again, praying for the engine to start. Click. Nothing. I tried again, and this time, the engine roared to life. Relief washed over me, and I yanked the gear shift into drive. As I pulled forward, I glanced into the rearview mirror, and my heart stopped. Standing on the bridge behind me was a figure, tall, motionless, facing away from me. I could see just enough in the dim light to know that it looked exactly like me. Same jacket, same posture, head slightly tilted like it was listening to something. I floored it, the tires screeching on the wooden planks as I tore across the rest of the bridge. My hands gripped the wheels so tight they hurt. I didn't dare look back. The road stretched ahead of me, dark and winding, but I couldn't slow down. I drove until I hit the edge of town, pulling into the first gas station I saw. I parked, breathing hard, and glanced back at the road. Empty. Inside, I bought a cup of coffee just to give my hands something to do. I must have looked like hell because the old guy behind the counter gave me a strange look. "You all right, son?" he asked, his brow furrowing. "Yeah," I lied. "Just car trouble." He nodded knowingly. "A lot of folks have trouble on that bridge. Bad place. Used to be worse before the river got redirected." I didn't bother asking what he meant. I just needed to calm down. I stayed there for almost an hour before finally working up the nerve to head home. When I got back, I parked and sat in my car for a long time, just staring at my own reflection in the windshield. My phone finally pinged with a notification, a missed call from an unknown number. I played the voicemail and my blood turned to ice. It was my voice from the bridge, whispering, "Help me. I'm stuck." I deleted it without listening to the rest. It's been a few weeks since that night. I take the longer way home now, even if it costs me more in gas. I avoid that bridge like the plague. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm lying in bed, I hear that familiar voice just outside my window whispering for help, sounding exactly like me. I know it's waiting, and I know one night it'll catch up to me.